Speaking about Aurora Borealis. Did I say that right?
You did.
Not one of my things. I'm Bill Woody. I'm one of the principals here in the gallery. Other principals are Bill Welch and Jeff Smith, who's up here. Jeff's pictures are on this wall. Bill and Marty's pictures are in this room. My pictures are in there. Marty's pictures, Beth's pictures are back here in the corner. Sort of tucked in the corner, hard to see, but at any rate, Beth is president of Dayton's Tripod Camera Club. It's the largest camera club in the area, and she's a very prolific photographer. This is a member talk. We sponsor the member talks once a month. Must be the fourth Saturday. We have a guest artist talk the second Saturday. So this is Beth's day. You have the floor.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you all for coming. This is exciting to see so many people here. We're really proud of the gallery, and we just want to share and not only the art, but also education and how we create what we do. So as he said, my name is Beth Larsen, and I'm one of the photographers. I'm going to talk to you about the magic of the Northern Lights and my photography adventure. How many people in here are photographers with raising hands? Okay, not everyone. So, I am in awe of Mother Nature. Every day she inspires me with creativity, just centering of my emotions with sunrises, sunsets, mountains, oceans. And when she created the Northern Lights, she hit it out of the ballpark. I've seen a lot of beautiful things in nature in my life, but this was definitely a highlight. Not only is it about the photograph, but it's also about the experience. When you're watching the Northern Lights, there is the movement, there's the colors, there is also the unexpected. You never know what she's going to do. Is she going to dance? Is she going to rest? It's just waiting and watching. One thing that I'm working really hard on, and people that have photographed with me, is to just enjoy the experience and not be so focused on taking the pictures. Because I tend to get worked up about my photography and I want to get that picture. I want to take a good one home. But sometimes it's just about enjoying the experience. So another thing I really want to stress is when you're planning to go see the Northern Lights, which I recommend highly, preparation is pretty important. So there's a couple of ways you can prepare, months in advance even. And the first thing is picking when to go. So right now, we are on an upswing related to this solar energy. Every 11 years, it goes up and then down. So July of 2025 is right here, so it will be a highlight. It'll be really strong, intense auroras at that time. And so, right now would be a fantastic time to go because it's ramping up. I went in March of 2022, and it was fantastic then. So I'm going to share some of that. You can get some apps. This is called My Aurora Forecast. And in that app, it will show you a lot of different things, how you can predict. You can learn a ton. There's a lot of science behind it. I'm going to talk about a little bit of that, but it is a ton of information. This is a weather forecast. In order to see the Northern Lights, it has to be clear. So you want to follow the weather, anything you can do to learn about what's predicted, what's happening, cloud cover is really important. Webcams. Prior to going to the Northern Lights, I used to go on this webcam. Let's see if I can click on that. I thought I duplicated my displays, but it went back to the original setting. Anyway, you can watch the night before's whole movie of the northern lights. So this is what you see, and will play the whole night before, very quickly. So when you're planning your trips, this was really helpful for me to watch this, and I could see, okay, how long did the aurora last when it did show up? What time? You know, was it 9 o'clock? Was it 2 a.m.? You know, it's an all-night thing. So you can see how this goes very quickly, and you can watch the whole night in like 2 minutes. So it's a great way to see what's going on with the aurora. And this was a Fairbanks webcam, so this was kind of close to where I was going. But there's a lot of webcams everywhere. But this is really cool. I actually looked at this because this was last night, and it was cloudy. You can see the clouds moving in. So there wasn't a lot. It looks like maybe some aurora right here, but there wasn't a lot. You know, some of these movies are just incredible. So I would recommend checking some of those out as you're planning. There's also this Space Weather Live. It's got, you know, the probability forecast, KP index. You can just go deep into this stuff, and we're not going to get into that level of detail, but there's lots of probabilities and predictions related to how much solar energy is released from the sun. All right, let's go back to this. All right, so where should you go and when? I flew into Fairbanks and shot around there, and then we went up to Chena Springs, which is a resort. It's way like an hour away from Fairbanks. So it's, you know, dark. It's a great place. There's a mountain you can go up on top of, so it's a great place to go. But the northern lights are everywhere. This is the aurora oval here, and as you can see, anywhere in that oval, and it does move, you know, kind of depending on the severity of the northern lights. So for this particular picture, this is a high energy. So over here in Europe and in Greenland, it was pretty intense over there. Now, over here in Alaska, it may still be there, but it's just not as intense. So in any event, you can see the northern lights anywhere. I know Bill and Marty went to Canada and got some amazing shots at Yellowknife. Many people go to Iceland. One of our photographers here, Bob, he went to Iceland and saw some northern lights. So, you know, you don't have to go to Alaska. It's wherever this oval is. So, you know, sometimes the aurora is so strong, the oval is large enough, it goes down into the lower 48, but that's, even if it does do that, you can still see it. You're not gonna get near the show as you are in this oval. When to go, this is a kind of a cool diagram. It talks about the months to go. I went in March. There's a higher number of clear nights in March. So that's, you know, you're more likely to see it if you have clear nights. There's more snow in March than there is in the, you know, September, October. But it is cold, and we'll talk about that in a minute. In September and October, when you can see it, at least in Alaska, there's more reflective surfaces. So you can get, Bill had a great image that had a reflection in water of the aurora. You know, the waters were frozen when I went, so there was no reflection. The temperatures are warmer, which is a good thing because, you know, being out in the cold all night is tough on your body. There's cloudier skies than there are in the spring. So, and there's less snow. So, you know, you kind of make your choices whatever's important to you, but you can kind of see the aurora season is August 21st to April 21st. You have to have clear skies. Sometimes if there's a little bit of clouds, you can still see it, but, you know, clear skies are going to be key. Moon or no moon. So you look at the moon cycle. Should you go when the moon is full or when it was it's no moon? And for me, I think it would be a challenge to adjust my exposure with the moon there because you'd have to take down, did you shoot when there was a moon?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, and so you really have to adjust for that. It can make some cool images, but I went when there was no moon, so I didn't have to worry about that. So it's kind of a personal preference. Preparing for going to see the Northern Lights. I can't stress this enough, you have to dress for the weather. It's cold at night, the night is long. So if you have a place that's great for viewing, you know, just going for 15 minutes, you may not see it. You have to wait. Reminds me of photographing birds. Sometimes you have to wait. You know, numb fingers and toes are not good for operating your camera. I had some pretty good boots, and so my feet were okay, but my fingers were numb, and I thought I bought the best equipment I can afford. You put hand warmers, I mean, you do everything you can to keep your hands warm. But that is a really key thing if you're gonna be out. You know, it was probably -20 up on top of this mountain, and then you have the wind. Because if you're in a clear, kind of open area, the wind. So that's just something to consider. Know your camera. So the last thing that you want to do when you're up there with anybody really, but especially photographers, is you know, you start turning your lights on and you're just ruining everyone's picture. So this is a picture that I took and somebody turned their red lamp on. Now fortunately it was red because when you have a just a regular flashlight, your eyes are adjusting to that, and then they have to, your pupils have to kind of open back up again when it gets dark. It takes a while to adjust. So, you know what you need to adjust on your camera. I'm not saying you have to know absolutely every button to push, but for me, the thing that I needed to adjust during the Northern Lights was my shutter speed. So I needed to know where that shutter speed thing was, because the last thing I wanted to do, unless I wanted to get yelled at, was pull out my flashlight and be looking at my camera. So, and getting a red headlamp is important too, or a red light, because white lights are just totally distracting. So that's pretty important. So the aurora has many colors. This is kind of an image I just had done today, and you can see there's lots of colors here. It was very colorful. I was lucky that the 2 of the nights that we went, there were lots of colors. Sometimes you just see green, but you know, we got reds and purples and some blues, and it was absolutely gorgeous. So what causes those colors? So these energized particles called corneal ejections are coming off the sun, and they are slamming into the Earth's atmosphere at 45 million miles per hour. I can't even fathom that. So they're coming into our atmosphere, and our magnetic fields are pulling them north and south, for the north and south poles. And they're sucking them down because there's an ability, it's weaker there. So they're sucked down, all these particles, and they're full of, you know, the sun's electricity. So they're excited, and they release light when they come into our atmosphere. So the color depends on the gas and the altitude. So at what altitude are they mixing with the gas, and what gas? So green, which is, you know, you see a lot of green with the aurora, has a high concentration of oxygen. Red is at higher altitude oxygens, and you have to have intense solar activity. Blue and purple is nitrogen, and that is also high solar activity. So, you know, when you see these just stunning colors, you know that it's a pretty intense solar ejection and storm. All right, gear. So this image, I kind of put it up there. It's kind of blurry, but I wanted to kind of talk about that for a second. You can see these are stars. And that was probably about 25 seconds. So the longer the shutter speed, which we'll talk about that in the next slide, the longer the shutter speed is open, your stars are moving. So they're going to be blurred. Whereas if you shoot at 10 seconds, for instance, the images that I have where I used a 10-second setting, but you have to have a pretty colorful aurora like this, because this is lighting up the sky. So I can use a faster shutter. those stars don't look like this. So it's kind of all a trade-off and a juggling act. But as far as gear, I use a wide angle lens, 14 millimeters. And whatever lens you have, typically you want it to be as wide open as you can because you want to let as much light in because it's dark outside. So I used a 2.8, that was as good as I had. So, you know, use what you have. I don't think you should change your lens up there. I don't know, did you guys ever change your lens? Yeah, you're not gonna think, oh, I'm gonna go to a telephoto now. No, whatever you choose, you're sticking with. So if you're gonna do that, if you want some different lenses, you're gonna need to bring 2 cameras. But then you gotta have 2 tripods and, you know, I don't know, it's kind of a juggling act. Plus it's dark too. And you obviously need a cable release and a tripod. So I shot in manual. You could use auto ISO, so your ISO adjusts. You know, you want to keep your f-stop consistent, and then you're also going to adjust your shutter speed based on the lightness. Like I said, longer shutter may create some funky stars, so a fast-moving or a bright aurora like this, 2 to 10 seconds, and then if it's fainter, you're going to go for a higher shutter speed. And use that highlight priority, that blinky settings to where it says, hey, you've blown out to adjust. That's really helpful. ISO I used 1600, 3200. I think again, it depends on your lens, the brightness, all of those things. So I'll have to tell you a little story. My husband, who's over there taking this video, we were freezing. our extremities were numb because we got up to the mountain at like 10 and then we didn't leave until 4 a.m. So that's a lot of time to be in the cold. We were freezing. And I mean, it's hard to go into the yurt because there was a yurt to get warm. It's hard to go in there because you got a show going on out there. It's like, I don't want to miss that show, but boy am I cold. So he took his camera into the yurt.
I was having tripod problems.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I didn't do it deliberately. It was just like, I gotta fix this.
Yeah, okay, because if you don't have a tripod, you can't get good shots. So anyway, this is a picture after him coming out of the yurt, and it's just condensation. So, you know, if you're gonna go and anticipate, like, at least he and I could trade off. We never went into the yurt together because somebody's gotta watch their cameras. You know, you can't take them in, so we would take turns. But anyway, you don't want to take your camera into a warm area. It's no bueno. So there's all kinds of information out there about what settings to use. I just, you know, grabbed this off the internet. So, you know, based on your f-stop and, you know, your ISO, this is just some ballparks. So, you know, again, you're going to kind of play around with it. You're going to see what works. I recommend you kind of start with, you know, something like 1600 ISO in 10 seconds or 15 seconds, see what it looks like, and then you can kind of go from there. But it's hard to kind of practice the aurora when it's not there as you're getting ready at the beginning of the night. So how do you focus? Because it's dark and your autofocus isn't going to work, it's just going to keep searching out there. So you want to use your manual, focus on a star. That's tricky, especially when you're old like I am and your eyes aren't very good. So you're kind of looking there, it's like, I don't know. But once your focus is set, you can consider taping your lens so it doesn't move. Because what I learned was this is not a just put your tripod up in one place and take pictures. This is a very active kind of shooting, which I'll talk about in a minute. But you can take some pictures of stars and evaluate for sharpness. So we get to Fairbanks. I could not wait to see this aurora. It was just, I was so excited. So we walked to a cemetery in downtown Fairbanks and we were gonna see the aurora. Well, this is called light pollution and bad foreground. Now you can see the aurora there, but it's a horrible picture. And you know, we did see it, which was exciting. But you know, if you're gonna go all the way to Alaska, find some good places to shoot where you have some nice foreground and you don't have all this stuff going on. So here's a couple that I feel like are better pictures and good foreground. So I think this one is that over here. So this kind of, so you can see that, you know, I use the yurt as, you know, one of my foreground elements and just some trees, but lots of purples and lots of different shades of green. It was gorgeous. So get creative. This was kind of a happy accident. Again, this is not just stay in one place, and I had moved my tripod and I didn't crank it down enough, and so as I open my shutter, it's going. So anyway, but I'm like, ooh, I kind of like that. So I had shot the aurora right there after I tightened my tripod down. So I put those two together. So that's kind of where that came from. This is called a corona. So you're basically turning your camera all the way up and looking straight up, and it's where the particles are coming straight in. So it creates things that look like sometimes weird things, like I think that looks like a horn. I have one that looks like a ghost. Different people have different animals. So, you know, every once in a while somebody with our group would say corona, and we'd all just like yank our cameras up, you know, and just, you know, it's very dynamic. And then you're over here shooting this beautiful scene. All of a sudden, she decides to dance over here. So, okay, well, this is gone now. So now I have to move and I have to find a good foreground, and, you know, so it's very much an active thing. And you're out there in the snow, it's dark. So, you know, a couple of people like got into the snow, you know, up to their legs, because you don't realize how deep it is, and so you have to be really careful. But I think getting creative is a lot of fun. So I tried to do this pano. I don't think it's done very well, but you can see the Milky Way. So I took a number of pictures and put them together, but the Milky Way is right there. So kind of cool. So the other thing you can do is time lapse. And like I said, I would recommend that if you're gonna go to kind of have these things kind of planned, because what happens when you get there and it's beautiful is you lose your mind. You can't even think straight. You know, you think, oh, I'm gonna do all this. It's like, oh, that I forgot to do that. So anyway, this is a pano that or a time lapse that I did. This is probably 50 pictures. Let's see if this works. So I took all these pictures, one after the other, and then I put them together in post. So it kind of gives you the movement. Now, again, 50 pictures for that, that's not very long. So it does take a lot of your card space and a lot of energy. Plus, when you're shooting, you know, this time lapse, you are not shooting anything else unless you got another camera. So that's taken its place. So this is not by me, but I wanted to show it because this was the night I was here. This was a guy that went with us. He's an astronomer, John Schumack. He lives here in Dayton. And he had a fisheye lens right out in the middle of the mountain. And you can see up here, there's movement. That's our group. So you'll see people popping in and out. That's our group. But what I wanted to kind of share, so see all that color? So when that color's happening, this is what I'm getting on the ground. So you can see kind of what's happening, and look how 360 that is. So it's not just happening over here, it's everywhere. It's moving. So it's a very, very dynamic situation where you have to be, you know, watching everywhere. It's nice to have somebody with you and say, hey, look over there.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought that was really cool. And he set that up for the whole night, so you can kind of see some of the things that the aurora does. And there's some great YouTube videos out there to look at. So
You shooting video or time lapse?
this is a time lapse. Yeah. He set it up all night, but he had another camera, so he could continue shooting. So he, at the beginning of the night, just turned it on and then went and did other stuff. Okay.
Hey, Beth, can I ask a question about that slide?
Sure.
The colors in that oval, do they mean anything, like the orange and the green? It's difficult to see from back here.
It's just the oxygen that, or the oxygen, nitrogen, or, it's interacting. So, I don't know, as far as meaning, it means when you have something other than green, it's a high solar activity. There's a lot of energy in the air. So, some
So
people
that-
say you can hear it.
So that could guide you a little bit to where you might see more colors than another spot.
Yeah, I mean, the color really is just about more the solar energy. I don't think that, you know, like the nights that we were there, it was colorful over here 1 minute and then it's colorful over here. So it's not like, oh, here's the color. It's everywhere. And again, you're moving around, so you have to be pretty adept with, you know, your camera and putting, you know, tightening the tripod so it doesn't just fall over. Editing photos. So this is straight out of camera. This I feel like it's too juiced up. You know, I dehaze, which is in Lightroom. You can use that and you can crank it up, and it tends to really make things vibrant. I think it tends to be a little, you know, like this is a little much. But you know, the other thing you have to consider, what color is the snow? Sometimes, like here, the snow kind of looks a little red. You know, in other pictures it'll look green. You know, do you make it white? It's all personal preference as to how you process things. I don't know how you guys deal with your snow and when you look at that stuff.
You make the Northern Lights look good. You make them look like how you want them to look, because,
Yeah,
be honest, they always look better on a photograph than they really do.
it's true.
But the long exposure of the camera brings out all those colors.
Yes, they are a lot more vibrant in the image than live. Although, you know, like this was very colorful. I mean, I suppose it's more vibrant here, but it was super colorful. So, you know, there's a new sky mask thing in Lightroom and Photoshop. Makes it really easy to kind of separate the two and edit that way.
Plus, all that color in the sky does make the snow.
It
reflect
does.
that
Oh,
color.
for sure.
So you can't make it white. Make it white, you dull out the lights.
Right. So, you know, when you, I don't know whether you saw the earlier shots, when you shoot wide angle, your trees are all gonna be going this way. So, do you straighten them? I don't know, I guess it's personal preference. I straighten mine, I don't like crooked trees, you know. But, you know, other people may want to, you know, to leave them crooked. I know that John Schumack, he leaves his trees crooked. So, I don't know, do you straighten your trees?
I don't like crooked trees.
I don't either, it's just my thing.
It's not natural to be like that.
Well, and I think that, I think I have a picture of like one of the, like you can see, they're all angled this way. See the camera in there too. So, you know, it's really easy to do that in Photoshop, to straighten them out, and I just think they look better. Denoise, so, you know, your ISO is gonna be 3200 or 1600. You're gonna wanna use some denoising. I like Topaz, I use Topaz all the time. I also, Lightroom has a great denoising thing that you can use, so it's kind of whatever works for you. This is an image of a Corona, so you can see it looks like the Amazon logo. What's that?
You should sell it.
So one thing I really regret is, you know, when we took these pictures, because we each took pictures of ourselves, we were so cold and irritated, and, you know, we just didn't, we should have done it when we were fresher. But, you know, it's really hard, because
The truth, right.
if you're gonna take a picture of a person, you need to hold still, because you're leaving it open for a little bit. It's dark unless you have a light on them, which then you're gonna piss off the people next to you. So, anyway, but don't forget to do that. This isn't a very good picture of me. I got my little red headlamp on underneath my coat, but anyway, just don't forget to do that. I think it's important, and you can get some really nice things, you know, if you take a little time.
And that was probably about 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And the wind chill was 25 below zero.
Yeah, it's hard to put a smile on your face. And the pictures of him, which I wish he would have taken this off. He's got this mask, you can barely see his eyes, you know, but he was, you know, keeping himself warm. So.
Smart.
Just some pictures, you know, some different things. Like I said, this is, you know, some purples and greens. This is, I think, that's this picture. Lots of greens. That's a little vibrant. This is something called piano keys. So, you know, when you're watching them live, they're actually moving like piano keys. It is just incredible. And then they'll kind of be like moving like this. So, really neat. Another beautiful aurora. And that is all I have. What questions do you have?
I think we're all full of that stuff.
I'm working on it. People seem to enjoy it,
That's
so
fantastic stuff.
thank you. Thank you. Ted?
They're always shouting me down. What card did you use? With that extreme cold weather,
What did I use?
memory card, yeah.
I think I had a 256.
You know what brand?
I don't know.
Do you have your R5 then, or are you still using the Mark IV?
It was the Mark IV. So with I have a new camera, an R5, and I have a bigger, it's got gigs on it, you know, so I can shoot a lot more. But I didn't have any trouble with buffering or, it's, you know.
Your camera just ran.
Well,
No, the
you know,
issue-
sometimes you're just continuing to shoot. Other times there's, you know, it's slower. There's not as much going on. So it wasn't like I was shooting every second.
I'll say the,
Well, I kept them close to my body. So I put them in my coat, and then I didn't really have a problem with batteries. Of course, I went.
Swap them out during the time you were out there.
Yep. And I went home and charged them before we went out the next night. And you know, if you keep them close to you, they're gonna stay charged longer. So I didn't really have a problem.
I'm just gonna jump in on the batteries. That was one of the two things I encountered, was not the batteries, but the mechanism to open your battery compartment was frozen, so it's a kind of like trying to open that,
You don't
like
wanna
Beth
break that
said,
door.
in the dark, you know, so you can't shine a light up there because everybody's shooting around there. Well, you're wearing gloves, you're not taking your gloves off. You know. So, and you had gloves under your gloves, so I would take off the over gloves, use the under gloves, but it took a few minutes to get that thing to
Yeah.
move, to pop the battery out. And then, as Beth mentioned, what I learned is make sure your tripod's rated for 25 below. Mine was not, and I ran into issues trying to extend the legs because everything just froze up.
Well, the last thing you want to be doing is going into the yurt and fixing your equipment. Yes.
Are the South Pole auroras pretty much like the North Pole?
I believe so, yeah. It's called Aurora Australis or something, but I think, you know, the north is obviously more accessible to us, but absolutely.
No hotels down there.
Yeah.
Different time of year though.
Yes, correct.
Opposite time
So you
of year.
wouldn't use these timetables, that was for
Right.
north,
Maybe opposite.
yeah. Anything else? Did everybody put in for my print? Let's do a print drawing.
Wait. So wait.
Not
not
everybody.
Here.
You gonna let people sign up?
If you didn't can go ahead, we can wait till everybody gets their name in and, here's this Corona. This is the, kind of the trumpet thing.
You didn't, I saw this. You're trying to see
You
the
know,
live.
this yurt provided me with a lot of, you know, opportunity for foreground just because it was fairly picturesque and, you know, it wasn't just the trees. You know, that's one thing that if you're going, I would recommend to kind of look at your foreground and kind of look around and if you're going to photograph to kind of have that in your head, so you can kind of frame some shots. But, you know, you can't create things that aren't there. So I would love to go and get reflections in the lake with the mountain and all that, but you know, you work with what you have.
I see them frequently at the police station. Some years, not at all, but some years you go out and look at.
All right, everybody else in my basket? All right, Jeff, you wanna? Sure. Jeff's gonna draw. We're gonna give away this image. Oh, he says to come over here.
He's stirring him up.
He's trying to find him.
This is called Aurora Yurt Smoke.
I saw him.
Okay, I've got one.
Okay. Tim Hiley. Congratulations. Any other questions?
It was great.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, let me know if you have anything or any questions about my images, and please help yourself to the wine and cheese and snacks.
Beth, you convinced me that I have minimal great desire to go out in that cold.
Yeah. But you know, I understand that because it is cold, but when you're watching it, it is unbelievable. It is breathtaking. You just can't even, you forget about your numb fingers.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Even Dave agreed, okay.
So
Yeah.
we went for his 60th birthday party. So on his 60th birthday, we got to see a show like
That's
this.
pretty good.
And it was a
perfectly
wonderful,
celebrated.
wonderful gift.
Well,
So-
It's
Bill,
all-
we'll prepare you by taking you to the snowy owls. It was 40 below, and the warmest it got the entire week was 29 below.
No, no.
Okay.
I'll wait till they come back to normal.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen some of those and they look
Do that
very
on your next
intriguing. Stay
60th
warm.
birthday.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Hey, Beth, in general, how difficult was it to do that trip? Meaning to go to Fairbanks and then go to this place where you were shooting and then go back to your accommodations and do it again? How
So
difficult was it?
it wasn't difficult. Fairbanks, I mean, is a very accessible airport. This Chenna Springs is a resort, so you can easily get there. It was a little snowy, icy driving, but you know, and then you're staying at the resort. When you're there, every evening they take groups of people up to the mountain on this snowcat.
Charlie Dome.
Yes, Charlie Dome, thanks Dave. And so you're going up in this snowcat. Takes about half an hour to get up the mountain on this snowcat, and then, which, I mean, it was fun. You're jostled around a little bit. But then you get up to the mountain and you can just, it's a huge area. So, you know, I think that if you do some research, you can find areas that you can see the northern lights. And even if we hadn't gone to Chenna Springs, there's some areas you can drive to and they've got parking and you can get out and see the northern lights that are outside of that light pollution area. So,
And Chenna has a hot springs. So in the day, after we got a few hours sleep, you could go in the hot springs. We did dog sled ride.
they have something called an Aurora bar, which is all made out of ice. I thought about including some of those pictures, but there's other things to do there during the day. And that's why March is nice. They have daytime, you know, so it's not all, you know, nighttime. We saw moose. I think I saw one eagle, but I see so many eagles here in Dayton, so.
We're impressed.
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
Another, maybe more accessible area is northern Michigan, especially as the ejections from the sun are becoming more,
Yes, like Upper Peninsula.
yes. So the Upper Peninsula, they have really nice displays.
I've thought about that because that's much more achievable,
Yeah.
especially as we're getting to these higher, you know,
Higher activity areas.
right, higher activity. I think that that would be, and you know what's nice is there's other things to do there. So it's not just a one-trick pony to where, and it's, you know, challenging when the only thing you're here to see is the Northern Lights, and you have to rely on weather and conditions and things like that. So.
Northern Minnesota too.
Yeah,
Because
North
they've got the
Shore.
lake and the North Shore, yeah.
Okay.
That's gorgeous up there.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Ely, Minnesota.
Well, thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Beth, that was great.
Thanks, Marty.